everybody? Welcome back to the Digital Liberation Front. I'm here with Lee Howerton and my boy Seven. We're basically rebooting the Digital Liberation Front on the Progressive Insider platform, and we're happy to be here. There's been a lot of changes in the past couple of months, both outside in regard to politics and also with the Digital Liberation Front. So I wanted to kind of catch up with everybody today. We don't have any like formal topic. Just want to catch up with everybody and talk a little bit about, like, you know, where we are, where we're going, where we would like to go, the end of the world. But yeah, so I mean, first and foremost, the big thing, you know, we're all progressively minded. We come from different backgrounds, different walks of earth, but still, you know, all progressively minded and about that progressive agenda. And so one of the biggest things that affected all of us in these past couple of weeks had outside of you know, COVID-19 and this pandemic that we're experiencing, basically Bernie Sanders withdrawing from the presidential nomination, and that's affected a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And so yeah, I wanted to kind of touch base with you guys about how you feel. No judgment-free zone. Speak your mind, speak your piece. Lee, take it away.
So especially with the Bernie suspending his campaign, I really kind of feel like that was in the face of the attempts to force in-person voting and really a goodwill gesture of, you're more important than your vote for me. I don't want you to die just to go to cast a primary vote. I really kind of felt from the beginning when I saw how many people had entered the field that they had run in the same strategy, just changed the play from 2016 of trying to choose how the chips were going to fall this time, making it more plausible instead of how it was in 2016, where it was obvious the interference the DNC was running. It's been a little bit of a blow, him dropping out, but you know, it is what it is, and now we're all living in the shadow of the Rona.
True. Yeah, consolidation right before the consolidation that happened right before Super Tuesday was definitely a monster. You can't. It's definitely orchestrated and coordinated, and that definitely, you know, undermine the faith of a lot of progressives in the system, and pretty much let us know that, you know, this is just business as usual. Here we go again. Seven, what are your thoughts, dude?
Okay, so I guess I just feel like, well, first of all, I mean, I knew that Bernie's path to victory was as narrow as a chick's butt crack, but it was kind of interesting just seeing and knowing that, I mean, everything just started to feel like 2016 all over again. You know, in the grand scheme, it just felt like, you know, we had everyone pushing toward, or everyone in the mass media basically pushing a candidate towards us that nobody likes, while at the same time vilifying and demonizing the progressive populace. And it just seemed like, you know, and at the same time, not paying any attention to any of the myriad skeletons that are in the closet of said candidate, you know, right before he goes against a bully of an incumbent who, you know, was going to use this information. So it's like, I'm really trying to figure out, you know, what the play is for the DNC and the long, like if they have a long game that they're even trying to that they're aiming for, or if their aim is purely just to save face as they lose gracefully.
Yeah, I mean, that's been my concern in the chatter I've seen, you know, in various groups, and you know, I've seen you all re-echo that sentiment over and over again. We all agree on that one fact. Dude has issues. He has some serious issues. Now, we can talk about whether, you know, he's guilty, whether he's not guilty. In my opinion, it doesn't fucking matter. The fact is, it's all distraction that will be wielded against him whenever he goes up against Trump. Period, point blank. We know Trump is not going to win. I recognize you all have this problem, with this guy, so I'm not going to touch on. No, he's going to be touching all over every single issue. And so,
and I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you got it.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, it really just upset me, especially at the fact that Bernie and his camp even admitted the fact that they knew that they kind of went at Joe with kid gloves. It's like, why? If you like, are you trying to win or are you trying not to lose? Like, what are we? Are we Andy Reid? In 2000, with the Eagles, or are we Andy Reid with the Chiefs? Like, which one are we? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are we trying? Are we really trying to win this thing or not? Because if you know that this is, and I'm not saying like, use every dirty tactic against them, but I'm just saying, if you know that this is something that's inevitably going to come out anyway, listen, we got to go at this thing and just let people know, listen, this dude is, he's done some things. There are some accusations out here, as well as there's information about his civil rights record that come into question. There's information about his interactions with Mandela that come into question. There's information about his nepotism and positioning of his son that come into question. And I'm not saying that this stuff is credible. It's just the fact that it's out there.
It's out there.
And when nobody's even talking about it. And that's the thing that gets me. It's like, we have this information out here, and this is the 800-pound gorilla, the elephant in the room, or whatever other analogy you want to use. Like, we have this thing that's right here that's saying, hey, this thing exists. Everyone knows it, but we're not going to talk about it until somebody else mentions it from the other side. And then we'll, clutch our pearls and say, oh, how dare he?
I like this narrative of, we can't find a perfect candidate, so we just go with this one. Like, well, raise your hand if you've never been accused of rape or sexual assault. I think most every man in America, literally just walk across the road. Hey, have you been accused of sexual assault? You're going to the DNC. You're
No, and that's it. It's like, it's not just like we're overlooking, a speeding ticket, from 1995 or some shit. Like, this is a serious allegation, and it makes the Democrats look like hypocrites because of how serious they were about Blasey Ford, how serious they were about Trump and his myriad of allegations, how serious we were. Me too. Everybody needs to march for this. Women can't stand for this. This is unacceptable. Except now, Joe
crucified a long-serving Senator Al Franken because a Trump supporter and media presence decided years later that she was so aggrieved that he had posed for a photo distastefully, not even touching her, but pantomiming an act. Gone. He's gone.
Yeah,
under the table. Completely erased him. Now we've got Joe, and what was that? The New York Times article that said there's no corroboration other than these 7 women who've said that he's touched them in a way that's made them uncomfortable without their consent.
As well as the various bouts of kissing and hugging that he did inappropriately. But other than that.
Yeah. Please don't show the video where he's obviously groping an 8-year-old child at a photo op as she tries to get away from him without making a scene. Please don't post that because we can't explain it. I mean, it's gotten to the point where I ask Biden supporters, how many rapes is too many rapes? Because right now it's somewhere between 1 alleged rape and 2 dozen. Because Trump's alleged rapes are too much, but Biden is apparently not.
And did we forget that Biden opened his campaign with a video basically saying, look, I know I've had a history of, inappropriate, contact, and I should have, thought more or thought better, about what I was doing. Like, it's out there. It's on videotape. What would you, if you weren't accused, if you didn't think these accusations or these perspectives of these women were credible, why the hell you make this damn tape?
Right. Yeah. This is not just putting hands on your shoulders while you're talking to someone or rubbing someone's shoulders from behind, which you probably shouldn't do if you're not close friends with someone or ask them first. I mean, you're talking about one girl said that he put his forehead against hers while they were speaking, and another specifically a sexual assault victim herself, he put his hand on her thigh while they were sitting next to each other.
Personal space
That's
violation.
not putting your hands on someone's shoulders in a supportive way.
Documented, all documented, all documented. And then and the other thing that's so infuriating, it's not, I mean, it's not because it's gaslighting. Literally, that's what it is. It's gaslighting. You're telling us we didn't see what we saw. You're telling us it's not as bad as we think it is. You're telling us, you know, this other person here, their allegation, you know, is specious, and we can't really, you know, question whether or not we should be questioning, you know, the victim. Everything you're telling us we should.
Not only is it specious and it's abstract. We can't even pin this thing down. What is it? It has no form. What? I have no idea what this thing. Who a terror? What is a terror read? What is that?
It's ludicrous. But even worse is now Biden supporters, or it's projection on 5,000. Now Biden supporters are sitting here trying to say, oh yeah, you know, anybody, you know, they're in full attack mode, you know, attacking anybody, you know, who raises these obvious questions. Now suddenly, you know, oh, you're helping Trump. You're going to help. You must want Trump to win in 2020 because you're questioning. You must have supported Trump. You Bernie bro. It's like, no, I'm sorry. Calling out facts makes me a Bernie bro. Even if that were the case, even if I fit the profile, I'm sorry. Even a broken clock can be right twice a day. So these things happen, or they did.
The symptoms of obvious mental decline, and get told he has a stutter. Okay, well, a stutter doesn't make you forget what you're doing and stand there at a podium mid-speech until your wife walks out and says, hey, Joe, come on, it's time to wrap it up. And then he says, oh, okay. And then just continues to stand there until she says, Joe, leave the stage.
The thing, you know, the thing.
I mean, I'm honestly curious to see what this is eventual and, you know, ultimate debate between, you know, Joe and Trump is going to look like, just because, I mean, we on one side we have, you know, dementia and, you know, obvious signs of mental decline. So we like, what Joe are we going to get this day? And then, you know, then on the other side, you know, we have a version of that with Trump, in that, you know, you're like, well, you know, are we going to have the coked up Trump that's, you know, really, popping and ready to go on, you know, on his Adderall and cocaine cocktail, or is he going to be, you know, the more subdued Trump that can't read, you know, that stumbles through words and just uses words like bold, powerful, and terrific all the time?
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like, you know, you don't know what you're going to get, but I can tell you whatever version of Trump we see, he's going to be in attack mode. And as a matter of fact, the more desperate he becomes as a result of this COVID-19 fallout, he's going to need a punching bag. He's going to need somebody to lean into or to distract from all the drama. And we've given him the perfect punching bag if we're putting Joe Biden up there. We have.
And it's perfect that you said that, because now it's funny how, you know, Joe had talked earlier in the campaign. I think even when he had, you know, probably had reservations about his own path to victory, he was talking about, I would take Trump behind the bleachers and you know have given the old, you know, the 1-2 buckle my shoe or whatever. Like, okay, sure, you're gonna do that with him, but just last week, now it's up to you to debate against Trump. You're saying I'm gonna take it easy. What?
I have a feeling that presidential debates in the age of the Rona, it's going to end up being Trump alone on the stage with an empty chair because Biden won't show up because he can't live stream from his bubble shelter.
No, it'll be just like this. Hey, how you guys doing? Am I coming in clear? Hello? Does everyone see me? Hi.
The fact that that we're even talking about it is insane. But the fact the persecution of individuals who speak out about it, as if we're all supposed to fall in line. Like right now, the DNC has the job of undoing all the bullshit that we're talking about Bernie leading, you know, into this situation where we are right now. Now you need independence. Now you need progressives. And everybody isn't part of the DNC. Some people came just for Bernie. And so
Absolutely.
you were shitting on him the whole damn time. Now your winning strategy is to continue down that road and say, okay, now that Bernie has submitted to DNC superiority, you should fall in line too, the way that we have in regard to backing Biden and ignoring all this negative shit and just focus on the positive. You need to gaslight everybody just like we gaslight everybody. You need to pretend these things don't exist just like we pretend like these things don't exist. And if you post anything about it, if you say anything about it, if you bring up these things, we're going to lay into you like you're a Trump supporter because it's us or the highway, our approach to it. That's some bullshit to me.
I feel you.
I'd also like to point out that the last time Joe Biden ran for president, he had to drop out in disgrace because he plagiarized some things. He's that same Joe Biden, except for now with a rape accusation and 8 years of doing just enough to placate people, but not go far enough, and with all of his racist support of bad policy and segregationism. But I just don't understand why all of a sudden he's the golden child. We still have a legitimate choice in Bernie Sanders, who can take his strong background in the House and the Senate, and as a politician in his home state, and as a strong leader in the Senate during this coronavirus epidemic.
Exactly. Putting in exceptions for workers to accommodate them, in the situation, making sure that, people are getting compensated some way and protected. Like, this is documented stuff right now. So when we were talking about where's Biden, that's what we were talking about. He can be in this hyperbaric chamber, wherever, setting up his green screen, but we have people out there who are running for office who are actually literally putting in work. And you can say, well, Joe doesn't have, that ability. He doesn't have that flair. He's got to, be where he is. You can come up with excuses all day long. We can take him out the picture. Who is doing shit now for the people? Because what we're dealing with right now is a situation that requires Medicare for all, that requires a universal basic income, that requires protection for workers as they're putting dildos in boxes at Amazon, mailing those things off because they're considered essential. We're in that situation.
For your safety.
Exactly. So I'm not, I can't get with this, we need to put up this flawed candidate because he's all we have. He's all moderates have. He's all people who are in bed with some of these corporations have. He's the leftist leaning corporate friendly individual, but he's not the only option. He's not the only option.
No, he's not. He's not. And just the fact that, people are so, have such short memories when it comes to Joe is baffling to me. Because just like Lee was saying, it's not too long ago that he was fighting, to make cuts to Social Security. So and then some of the very people who voted for him in the Carolinas were Social Security recipients. Like, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? Like, do you not see how this all works together? Do you not see that? Hey, and it's like, listen. So we've had years? I won't even say years. All the years of his campaign or whatever. But I'm just saying, like, all this buildup of progressive, subjects. As far as like the UBI, as far as Medicare for all, as far as debt-free college and relieving our student loans and all that. So we've had these ideas. We've had all, on all these battlegrounds, we've had these battles left and right. And then you mean to tell me, after all of that battle and pulling people who were from the RNC, who were Republicans, who were Democrats, who were independent, and pulling them all into this coalition for Bernie, you mean to tell me the ultimate person that we're going to finally get to represent this group, this coalition of people,
Joe Biden,
is a moderate who, in all efforts, is nothing but a liar? who's a photo op man who loves to take pictures. He cries on cue, and he can give you a good dead eye Clint Eastwood squint if you need. And he's just Republican enough to pull in just a couple of Republicans from the other side, and winks at him just enough to make him say, "Hey, maybe my investments won't be so bad if this guy's an office." But I mean, is that the answer?
We've got a guy who's more apt to talk about his days as a lifeguard and corn pop than he is policy. A man whose platform is basically, I'm not Trump, and how many lies do I have to tell you to get Bernie supporters to vote for me? That's what we're sitting with right now.
Don't forget his leg hairs. Please don't forget the leg hairs.
He'll arm wrestle you. It's all that malarkey. He'll arm wrestle you. He'll make you step outside to do what? I have no idea.
I'm sorry. This is a man who says phonograph regularly. That's in his daily regular lexicon. Phonograph. Phonograph.
But you got to talk about the phonograph if you're going to do Lindy Hop. You got to talk about the phonograph.
Now, boys overseas finally coming back home from the big one.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm hoping that we can find some way to come together and move forward. I know one of the things that we started in regard to the Digital Liberation Front was this initiative to go out to engage people, to talk to them about the facts, talk to them about the issues. And it's just getting so damn hard to talk about the facts. Like, we can talk about Bernie is no one supports Bernie, no one supported Bernie, no one likes Bernie. He hasn't passed, any bills in Congress. He doesn't get anything done, even though, he has the most amendments in a Republican-led Congress, ever in his tenure. But yeah, there was all this dispelling about him. And I was still like, yeah, okay, you might be true somewhat in regard to this. However, let's look at these things in addition to the things that you're talking about. And I will validate you to a certain extent, but I'm going to invalidate certain things that you're saying that don't line up. And I'm going to put some of my own ideas on the table. That's not the way people are engaging in regard to Biden. It's not the way people are engaging in regard to Trump. It's like, ignore all this shit. Ignore it.
Absolutely. You remind me of a conversation I was trying to have. There was a friend of mine who was in Oregon. I was on her post. I can't remember what you were even talking about, but somehow we devolved into talking about the president. And then a friend of hers chimed in and said, "Well, yeah, I don't like to talk about him, but I did vote for him." And I was just like, well, and her friend and this woman, my friend Mel, she said, why didn't you want to tell people that you vote for him? Like, what's the deal? And I said, yeah, what are you afraid of? And so then, it kind of got into this whole thing of, she trying to justify and talking about, well, I wouldn't even say justify. She basically did a whole bunch of backpedaling and talking about, don't come at me like this. Why are you always trying to make things about politics? We can't even discuss politics. I'm like, we didn't even get to talking about politics. We didn't say anything about policy. I was just asking about your decision making. Like, that's all I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to understand, like what is it about this racist, xenophobic idiot who can't read that tells you, yes, this is the person that I approve of to be my leader? Like, what is it about that encourages you for the future, or gives you, hope for the future? That's what I was trying to get to. And we couldn't even get to that point because her thing instantly was complete dismissal, back away, you're evil. Why are you trying to make this about politics? Get away from it. Go ahead.
I'm totally with that. I know Lee is seeing some of the same response. I've seen some of the discussions that have happened online. I've tried to chime in too. The thing is, we got to play devil's advocate because these people don't want to play devil. They want to play angel's advocate. Like, this is like, there's nothing wrong in regard to anything that we're seeing, and we need to just dismiss it. What Lee, what are you in your circles? What are you seeing?
Well, I being a locksmith, I run into a lot of people from all different walks of life every day. I have to kind of keep my mouth shut a lot of the times and just completely be a political chameleon, just to make customer interactions not devolve into political debates or anything like that. I look at how many lies Trump has been documented as being told by him in not even one full term, including almost an entire year spent at his golf resorts, not lying.
Hmm.
And I can't see how anyone trusts him to even go to the store and pick up a pack of cigarettes and come back with the right thing.
Hmm. No, I mean you're right. It's documented across the board. The only way the DNC can separate themselves from Trump is for them to basically hold their politician, hold their candidate to task, to basically say, hey, now I'm not saying that you gotta, have a trial, bring Tara Reid out front, sit here and have him, be, mentally evaluated. Just have a conversation and validate people and say, okay, I recognize these things are wrong. I recognize these things. There are some issues to be had here. But it's like, I mean, it's like the old adage, we don't talk about what goes on at home, out in public, But the problem is everybody can see it. Everybody, emperor has no clothes. Just like with Trump, emperor has no clothes. And so whenever people are trying to pick between this, and we can talk about the fact that there is a very, very, invalid movement of false equivalence that's being pushed by the far right. But you reinforce that movement whenever you sit here and pretend like both sides don't have issues. This side has no issues while this side has all the issues.
Right. If we look at the Tara Reid accusation and the Dr. Ford accusation completely objectively, the case against Joe Biden is much stronger than the case against Justice Kavanaugh. You've got people putting her and him at the same party like 40 years ago, at some house party, versus a guy who's had multiple complaints against non-consensual, uncomfortable touching of women, and video evidence of him trying to sniff women's hair, all bunch of, creepy stuff. And you have, whether you believe it or not, a potential victim of the Epstein trafficking ring, naming him specifically as being a victim, that this victim was trafficked to while he was in the White House, among other people, including an unnamed individual who was currently in the White House. So you can't say that on one hand you've got to believe all women, literally like Joe Biden says or did say, and then when a woman steps up and says, yeah, he sexually assaulted me, and then just completely throw her away and find every excuse possible as to why we have to not believe her, and it's not plausible. There's nothing that could be plausible about it. Why?
I mean, and let's not forget the fact that, I mean, what is it? One of his campaign managers is the head of the group that is responsible for checking into women's allegations when they had, these allegations and things, but they couldn't look into Tara's allegation because it may jeopardize the presidential candidacy.
The conflict of interest there. There's a conflict. I read this, there's a conflict of interest. We can't even outsource that to somebody else to say, here's who we recommend to investigate this. We're just not going to.
We don't have a sister group. We don't have we don't network well, apparently. So
you don't know any other lawyers that can handle this?
No, man, my bad. You know what? I've got to know with this. So if you just listen, all right, Google.
Well, to be fair, that particular lady individual who is on the Biden campaign staff did help form another famous person's defense against their sexual allegations, and he was in prison until he was released because of coronavirus, I believe. So it might not have helped Tara that much to have her on her side.
Just one last thing that kind of gets me about this. It's like you when you look at, how people, respond to a certain movement or what have you, you can be fooled into believing that, oh, well, that's really how they stand. Alyssa Milano comes to mind because she was a huge proponent. She is a huge Me Too proponent. So she was, huge behind the Harvey Weinstein allegations. She's, completely behind Blasey Ford against Kavanaugh. She was all about, listen to the women, believe women. And now that she is pining for Joe Biden, when people ask, on The Hill, as a matter of fact, the TV show, they were like, hey, so what happened to your support? What happened about believing women? She came with the same responses that all the Republicans came about Kavanaugh. Like, while I believe we should believe women, we can't just go out and just, have every, Tom, Dick, and, allegation that just comes up and just, automatically just, throw it out there without any sort of vetting. I mean, so we have to make sure that it comes to, that they have their time in court, and that their peers are allowed to bring all the facts forward first before I have any, and I've had time myself to look at some of the information, but am I going to tell you that I've actually had time to do that? No, because I'm actually getting paid by the Biden campaign, but I can't tell you that part. Anyway, I mean, so it's like things like that are happening. It's just like, what do people actually believe the shit that they're saying, or are they just pragmatists and saying, well, listen, this is the best way I know to win right now?
Exactly. I believe there's a good mix of people who are in that frame of cognitive dissonance that have to suspend things in their own mind to be able to cope with what they're trying to do, which is get Trump out of office and get power away from the Republicans. But there are people who are wearing the mask. They're there for number one and going to make the best move to forward their own agenda, which is themselves. You see it all the time in the defense industry, people pushing for conflict so they can sell more hardware to everyone involved. Seeing it in civil rights movement, people who are there for the status and the prestige and the profit, and not caring if the movement is ever comes to conclusion with equal rights for everyone, because that would be their own war ending that they profit off of.
Exactly.
So we've got these people that we're dealing with where you don't know if they're true believers who are literally voluntarily jumping on a hand grenade to go down with a bad candidate, ruining their entire credibility that they've spent a lifetime building up, or if these are opportunistic parasites who are just trying to make the smart play.
And that's where ideology has to come into play. That's the one thing I like about the progressive movement. Like, it's not about, I mean, there are some people, I admit, just like in every single political movement, there are some people who came looking for a savior, looking for Bernie to be the one to deliver us, from everything, even though government is run for the people, by the people. There are some people like that, but at the core of progressivism, there's ideology. There's this belief that, crazy, all men are created equal, and that we should all be given, a seat at the table. We should all be given an opportunity. No one should be given an advantage over someone else. You shouldn't be able to buy votes. Healthcare should be something that, we don't dread. It shouldn't be tied to our employment. We should be able to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We believe that. And whenever you start trying to bend, ideology to accommodate, a candidate, that's whenever you start, going down that road of hypocrisy. And then, like Seven is saying, it causes you to question the whole system. You start, wondering, like, whose side am I supposed to be on? Like, if we're following an ideology, I can measure that out. I can say, this these are the rules in regard to sexual allegation. They don't change whether you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, Green Party, Red Party, whatever party you choose to be. These are the standards that we adhere to. But we start bending them and changing them for candidates, then it's like, as if I want to check out, as a voter. I want to say, they are all the same because nobody's adhering to anything. I'm just subscribing to whatever agenda is being put forward for me to subscribe to.
Absolutely. And I feel like, the same thing is actually happening on Trump's side. I mean, because, for all intents and purposes, the GOP wasn't about, I thought they were the conservative party. I mean, if Trump be the face of the GOP or, the conservative party with his sort of background, the way that he acts, the way that he moves, the way that he speaks. I mean, his entire presentation is antithetical to what the GOP is about. But somehow now he is the face of that, and everybody is locking step with him because they know that's where the power sits. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, what are we fighting? I mean, like, what is anybody really about? I mean, because if we're really looking at where Joe's actual values lie, he's more Republican than anybody. I mean, like if Joe's a Republican, then what a progressive? Because progressives are definitely not in step with what Joe is, and they won't be. And so when it comes to the point when it's time for the actual election to take place, all those, like I was alluding to earlier, all those Democrats, Independents, and Republicans that Bernie was able to coalesce together, they're not going to be excited by anything that Joe has to say. They'll be, I mean, if anything, they'll be, I think, just in my thinking, they'll be surprised or shocked at the fact that he makes it all the way to November.
I think, honestly, that Trump was an accident. He came in at the right time. His GOP rivals in the primary underestimated him and counted him out. And I don't think he thought he would make it to the nomination, and I don't think he planned on actually winning. And they're just like, all right, well, he's our guy, so we got to line up behind him and get everything that we can ran through to help us in secret and resist the Democrats. And that's where we're at now.
I think they thought at the very least they could control him. The GOP has been feeding, the monster of, racism since the Southern Strategy. And, they never backed away from it. It was too much red meat. It locked in their base, considering the changing demographic of this country. It was the way they had to go, to reassure, their people that stay in power because their ideology wasn't supported. It wasn't something that people were subscribing to. They were subscribing to less and less as, we move forward as a nation, in regard to, conservatism, the conservative ideals, same-sex marriage and women's rights and whatnot. They were losing ground across the board. So, they opened their door and said, okay, you racist, come on in and we'll work with you. We'll accommodate you some way, somehow. And, when Trump stirred things up or whatever, it was like, great, we got somebody who can, play, the racist aggregator. Everybody can get behind him, and then we'll bring him in, much like, the DNC is trying to do with Bernie's crowd now. We'll bring him in and try to turn this populist movement into something that, we can control and understand, and they'll fall in line. And that did not happen. That did not happen at all.
No, it didn't. It didn't. And that's not, that's not the play. That's not the way that things were destined to go anyway. Honestly, I just feel like, honestly, I'm concerned. If I could be honest, I'm really concerned about what the Democratic Party is actually going to look like after this, because we're, and because I don't consider myself a Democrat, but I'm just looking, from the outside in, like, well, if your ideals are, supposed to be so inclusive, then why do you exclude so many people? And how are you supposed to be pulling? What sort of efforts are you actually going to make to get those people in, especially at a time when a lot of those things that they were talking about are needed? like $15 minimum wage if there are jobs. I mean, the economy is crazy right now. I mean, and that's the thing. The economy is crazy, but the stock market is flourishing.
Without the Medicare for all to fall back on, if I'm an employer, I run a factory or, a coal mine, and you have health insurance and it pays for you and your family, it covers you, you're good. I can treat you like garbage. And if I know that no other place in the surrounding area can match my health insurance benefits, you're going to stay with me. You're going to work yourself to death in my factory or mine for shit money that doesn't barely cover your expenses because you can't afford, and God forbid you have a family member with special health care needs. I've got you for life because you can't afford not even the few months that you'll be with a lapse of coverage switching employers if you walk off of my job and into another to be without health care.
No, very, very true. Very, very true. It's a new age indentured servitude. It's a new age slavery. And because we're able to, come and go, from our homes and, shop at, the mall and order stuff online, we think, hey, I'm free until you get sick. Then suddenly you see how free you are in regard to being locked in.
Absolutely.
I had a good friend I worked with when I was doing security work. He was medically retired from the NYPD. He actually got sick from an encounter with someone at work, and I think got a viral infection from it, and ended up having to have a heart transplant.
Whoa.
So his life has changed forever. He has to take medications every day so he doesn't die from his heart being rejected by his body.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And luckily it was covered because he documented that, had the documentation that it was directly caused by his actions working.
Well, I mean, that's what we're looking at right now with this COVID crisis. That's the biggest thing that's my concern in regard to this pandemic, because you recognize that if you do survive it, those individuals, I mean, we recognize everybody doesn't die from it. I'll give you that. We recognize a lot of people are just going to get seriously ill from it. That's accepted reality. We see the numbers going up, in all the trackers every single day. We see the number of mortality, and then we see the number of individuals who are hospitalized.
Well, see, hold on. I'm kind of questioning the numbers only because, in certain instances, I know that doctors are being told to put down, because they're not even testing a lot of these bodies when they're putting down that they're dying of COVID. When people are passing from heart failure or, diabetes or some other respiratory failure that they just they could have just had a history of anyway. So sometimes doctors are putting down probable cause or possible causes, and that's being counted in these COVID numbers. So I don't know if the mortality that we're seeing are as actual as we think they are.
We don't know. You're correct. We do not know. And that's it. And for both sides of the aisle, from both sides of the issue, that's a concern on both sides. So my only concern with making that statement is the fact that it's being used in part as propaganda by the people who support this undeniably fascist regime. There's no way you can tell how many people have died from this or whatever. These numbers are all inflated, and because they're all inflated, they need to be disregarded. At the same time, it's very, very accurate. We don't have the testing, so we don't know what these numbers are. China is reporting higher numbers now because of their authoritarian implementation. I mean, in one village, I heard of a story where basically they boarded up. They heard some coughing coming from a neighbor's apartment or something like that. They boarded the person up in their apartment. I highly doubt if somebody is in there, they were recorded in the official numbers. We have people who have been sent home, exhibiting symptoms, that we're probably going to be finding, over throughout the year, because they don't show up or they haven't been heard from, for months at a time, so those will be added, as COVID fatalities. We're assuming everybody has somebody to check on them to make sure they're okay, they're all right. So, without numbers, without adequate testing, without the ability, to verify who's in this system and what they have and at what stage they are, or even reinfection rates as well, there's no way for us.
I just want to point out as as Italy was really reaching the peak, we were real surprised when they were encroaching on 1,000 deaths in a 24-hour period. Up until we surpassed them in infection rate. Um, I believe I saw yesterday we had about 4,000 some people die um, in one 24-hour period. Uh, this this is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. Because as it starts to get better, people are going to reopen the beaches, so to say. We're going to start going back to work, and then boom, second wave is going to hit.
Mm-hmm.
People who haven't been exposed, don't have the antibodies, they're going to get taken down. People who may have been exposed, maybe had it and got better, and it's going to hit them again. Um, and until we have a medicine that can eradicate this, like polio, it's going to be in our lives.
So are you pro-vaccine then?
I don't like. I'm not anti-vax. My kids are vaccinated, but we do a modified schedule.
No, I mean this vaccine. Like whenever, when and if ever they come out with one for this thing, are you pro taking one?
Yeah, I would. I want to see antibody tests before we start talking about reopening the economy, so to say. I don't want to force people to take medicines if they've naturally got an immunity through antibodies. Um, but there are people who may be higher at risk for the type of complications that may need to have a vaccine available.
Okay.
Well, there's one way to at least verify. I mean, we know people have the disease. We know people are dying from the disease. It's not like hydrochloroquine or whatever the hell Trump is trying to advance as a solution. Hopefully whenever this thing comes out, it will have been vetted and tested and not a disease where not a solution or vaccine where a quarter of the people who take it are dying from organ failure. So I think in regard to the situation, Seven, as far as the vaccine is concerned, on my end, it comes out, if it's been tested, if we have people saying it cured me, and we can look at mortality rates, of its implementation. I'm not expecting everybody, to recover 100% from it, but I'm hoping that the medical community will vet it at large, unlike the solutions that have been presented thus far. That nobody is standing behind. That are basically put out there, in my opinion, just to drive up, stock prices, in this collapse market, just to try to put a little bit more money in the hands of the few, in the hands of the wealthy.
I mean, just kind of going back to what I was saying before, kind of piggybacking off that, tail end of what you were just saying. I mean, like they are. I mean, right now there's been a huge transfer of wealth, and none of us have had anything to do with it. I mean,
as a small business owner myself, I did apply for the economic disaster relief loan. At the start, they were saying within 3 days you were going to be eligible to get a grant for up to $10,000. Just found out that within 14 days they ran out of the $350 billion they had set aside for that program. And also Ruth's Chris Steakhouse got $20 million from it.
Yep.
So,
don't get started on
wow.
Don't get started on the company that got the relief funds for COVID masks that were never
yes,
ever.
$55 million for a defense training company who is currently has no employees, and its parent company has filed for bankruptcy.
Broad daylight.
And they've made no masks, correct?
None.
They have no history in the medical professional field making any sort of medical supplies. Basically, they are charging the government over $5 per mask, whereas 3M is charging like 63 cents a mask.
Wow.
and this is what I don't get. I mean, and don't want to end with this thing, but this is what I don't get, because you have these Trump supporters who are all like, yeah, Trump is bringing down the system. He's gonna turn everything upside down. Drain the swamp. Yeah, rah rah rah. The whole fact is the swamp runs off money. So if you're talking about him upping in the system, wouldn't he be basically ending the dollar? He wouldn't be trying to put as much money into the pockets of his friends and constituents, because if the system is collapsed, what use is money going to be at that time? So it's like the most obvious fact that's not being acknowledged, or maybe it is, and I'm just not on the inside with the fascists the way they are in regard to their rationale, but I really can't put two and two together in that regard.
This situation is literally like Trump shitting on the lawn every day at the White House, blaming it on the dog, liberals pointing out Trump doesn't have a dog, and Trump supporters say, well, he says it's the dog, obviously it's the dog, Trump wouldn't shit on the lawn. And then someone showing videos of Trump daily pinching loafs on the lawn,
right,
and wiping with the flag.
Yeah, in front of everybody, but we have to say, no, the dog did it.
Like literally standing up, walking to the podium. It's a press conference in the Rose Garden. And then the one reporter that says, did you just shit right there and wipe with the flag? No, that was Obama.
I had to say that was Obama. That was the dog. He came in and he shitted on my lawn. Can't believe he would do such a thing. How dare he come in here, shit on my lawn. I can't believe it. And he used the American flag, folks. What? Terrific. I mean, he's going to come in here. I mean, it was now you got to say it wasn't powerful. Now, if I were to do something like that, it's powerful. It would be just like
it would be the perfect. It would be the perfect.
It would be the best shit. I'm telling you, folks. I mean,
not too solid, not too soft. One long piece.
Perfect consistency.
We're talking the best. All corn.
Oh my God.
And I created jobs. Look at that guy cleaning it up. I created a job. Right there.
Look, all right. I mean, I did it.
All right, people. Well, we're at the hour mark. But yeah, like everything we're talking about, we're going to elaborate on. We're going to continue to dig deep. I commend all of you all for continuing the fight. For progressive issues, for calling things out. We're the black sheep. We are the black sheep. Absolutely. In regard to what this political climate is right now. But someone's got to talk about this shit, because if we don't, we're going to be normalizing gaslighting insanity, in my opinion. Gaslighting insanity. But thank you all for coming out, and we'll continue to move forward. Digital Liberation Front. Love you guys. Talk to you later. Peace.